Welcome to the Busy Center Launch event and our session about using of electronic documents in a Busy Center, where my colleagues, while Vladimir Magnus, together with me, will try to explain what this core functionality has and how you can use it. Now, agenda. Even there is only 6 steps, it will not be a short presentation, as we want to show completely functionality here. We will start with some basic introduction and high-level architecture, but after that we will go deep down and we will show real demos from setup through the different scenarios in sales and purchase processes, from sunshine scenarios to the real issues in the process, so you will see everything. And we will close this session showing the list of currently available features and its roadmap. So let's start. CTC, new acronym and relatively new term. And it stands for Continuous Transaction Control, as this term is used to describe mandatory real-time invoicing, reporting, and validation by the authorities and present a set of digital control mechanisms to import tax collection and decrease tax frauds. This is from government perspective, but for us, it is important as more and more countries are introducing these requirements. Okay, as you can see on these slides, there are many aspects where CTC is presented, but we will not cover all of them today. You can see there is electronic VAT submission, SFT, and so on. Some of them will have their independent sessions. Today, we will be focused on the different models of electronic invoicing. Even we changed the name of our model from E-invoicing to E-documents. In the first release, we will be focused on invoicing primarily. After that, we will continue with some other documents, but for now, this is primarily focused on invoicing. Okay, we are talking about electronic invoicing as an absolutely new feature, but this is not something absolutely new in the Busy Center. We already had Fattura PA in Italy and CFDI in Mexico. Even if you look SAI in Spain, this is maybe not electronic invoicing, but architecture is pretty similar. This is more or less the same model. And then many partners created local-specific electronic invoicing solutions. But what we notice as a problem is that having different solutions from country to country will make problems to us to provide solutions for all these new countries and support for all of them, for existing and new countries, but also for you, as it will be more and more complicated and it will move us from the localization idea at all. We wanted to simplify the system and to make it easy for support. Solution was create one core electronic invoicing or electronic document system as a global app for all countries. It will not be 100% accurate. That means it will not be fit. Maybe some file formats, some small things are missing, but it will be for all countries the same model. On the top of that, as some things will be missed, we will add some local flavors as specific small localizations or local apps. Now, why we started to think this way and when we started to think this way? If you look at this roadmap, what you can see, in April this year, we had to enable new CFDI version in Mexico, version 4. It was not so easy effort. It was complicated. Only one country. But now we need to add Denmark and Belgium to the list. And now, before continuing with some other countries and the expected roadmap, I need to mention that this roadmap is maybe not 100% accurate, as governments are changing their enforcement date all the time. It was accurate in one moment, but maybe some of these countries will be moved before or after for a couple of months. Now, if you see, there are new countries are coming with their mandated invoicing rules. France, Spain, Germany, other countries as well. And there is VIDA, as a VAT in Digital Age Directive. This is new EU directive about electronic invoicing in digital VAT reporting across the European Union. And it was only about countries where Microsoft has own localizations. What with other countries? You can find numerous countries with enforced electronic invoicing, and we decided to make it easier to us and our localizations, but also to make it much more accessible for hundreds of countries where we have partner-based localizations. actually not 100, but more than 100 countries where we have partner-based localizations. In some of these countries, electronic invoicing is already there. In some of these countries, this is expected. So we want to make it easier for all of them, not only for Microsoft, but for partner-based localizations as well. And even when I made my own research outside of these enforcements from governments, I made this research on LinkedIn and Twitter, X, now this is X, not anymore Twitter. On this research, only 6% of 187 participants say that they do not need it. They do not need electronic invoicing in the business center. They said, I do not need, or I will develop it by myself. All others, that means 94%, somehow wanted this solution. So we had to do something. And okay, if you look on electronic invoicing, now it looks easy. We have a sender and receiver. We are sender, for example, we need to send the electronic invoice to our customer. And okay, where is the problem? It is, on the first side, this is really easy, but this is too easy to be real. Problem is that countries have different approach about electronic invoicing. This direct communication is something more or less available on voluntary basis in some countries, but when they enforce, they want something different. But on the other side, our idea is having powerful platform to cover the most of models, the most of different situations, if not all. And now let's keep on this the most easier way. No services specific, just communication between customer and customer vendor, or us with customer and our vendors. This is something what we call the two-corner model, easily communication. We can create electronic document file and send via email, some other way. This is something what you already have in the business central. You can export PayPal format and that's it. It can work. But when it comes to three-corner model, it will be more complicated because now we have service provider. We need to keep a specific format service provider asks from us, and we do not need to contact our receiver, our customer directly. Now we need to send to some API, some different model communication with the service provider, our electronic documents, and service provider will deliver this to our customer. And similar, when our vendor send invoice to us, they will send to service provider, and service provider will deliver it to us. This is three-corner model. In some countries, three-corner model is okay, but they're even more complicated. And this is, let's say, this is standard PayPal model, and this is, I think, the most situation in the most of countries, four-corner model, where sender and receiver do not communicate even between themselves and even with the service provider. Now we have sender and receiver access points. We have two access points. So sender, receiver, and two of access points are four corners, and because of that, this is four-corner model. Now we, if we are sender, we will send electronic invoice to our access point, and first validation will be done there. So our access point will communicate with the receiver access point, and receiver access point will deliver this invoice to receiver. But in the same way, they communicate with the government authority, so they will exchange all necessary information with them. But even in this model, imagine there is even more. You're in European Union and you want to communicate with your customer, with your government, you must deliver. And now you have foreign customer. And here for foreign customer, you need to report to your government. And that's okay. You will have standard file format and you will deliver it. But you have a really big customer and you want to be really polite. You want to make your customer happy and you want to send them their own electronic invoice file format. This is not something enforced, but this is something where you can increase quality of your business. So you can, without any problem, ask, okay, I want to create additional file format, even if different from what I deliver for my government, and I want to send it to my customer. That means it can be really complicated. And this is not only about documents. Now I explain only how documents are traveling, but there is even more. If you start for this, the most complicated standard type, the four-corner model, let's look deeper what we need to provide additionally. This is not only about, as I said, sending and receiving electronic document. There is much more. There is additional messaging system. And okay, if we start with the business central, we are at the business central and we have some external customer, for example. This is receiver ERP on this chart. First, you as a sender are corner 1 and your customer as a receiver is corner 4. And it is expected that we we have or we should have both of our system, electronic document messaging system inside of ERP solutions. But then moving forward, we have access points at the corner 2 and corner 3. Now let's look at our system more closely. It is essential to establish this in communication system with the access point. That means we need to communicate with access point. And what does it mean? Initially, when we dispatch a document to the access point, it will validate the document and promptly provide initial confirmation message or if document is correct or not. But this is not everything. Then access points communicate between themselves. And now, after transmitting our document through the receiver access point, our customer will receive it, initiating further interaction from their end. The customer has the option to either approve or reject this document. In some countries, there will be maybe even more options, a little bit different, but let's keep it. This is the most common scenario. Customer can approve or reject document. This message will then be provided to us by our access point once it is received from the receiver access point. Consequently, we must implement an additional asynchronous service to handle this messaging at a later point. That means you can see this is not so easy, not so complicated. You need to deliver document, you need to receive documents, you need to deliver messages, to receive messages. This is much more complicated than what we can conclude on the first sight. And how we decided to make it. Let's look at a high-level architecture of e-document. Our idea was to create e-document as an app. But there are many places already inside the base app, so we didn't want to remove them from the base app to this new app. So some of these features can be maybe used from some other reasons in a base app, but maybe even more important, we didn't want to make this kind of breaking changes as many partner-based electronic invoicing solutions are based on these existing features inside the base app. This is communication we got with the partners when we started to think about making this feature. That means we adapted some of existing part in a base app, but the biggest part of our e-document core app is an extension. And this is a global extension for all countries. It will be used in a W1 and all country localizations. Now, for example, there is no standard e-document global service. And because of that, the closest to the standard can be used in some of third-party access points. Sometimes you want to use because this is comfortable. Sometimes you will be enforced by government because they will enforce you to use only certified access points. So we will soon provide additional e-document global app ready to connect with the third-party services. This app will be based on our e-document core. That means it will be on the top of e-document core. It will not be independent app. And these apps made by Microsoft should provide minimum 80% of required features. Maybe even more, but minimum 80%. Now, on the top of that, Microsoft will provide specific localizations. In some countries, it can be only file format, but sometimes it can be in service integration, eventually maybe even new tables and fields if necessary. It depends from local requirements. And we will not be limited only on these 3 countries here on this slide. This is it will be enforced by specific dates when countries expect to have mandatory electronic invoicing country. We expect that the same model will be used by partners. And in the following period, we will provide proper technical documentation how you can build your own localization on top of our e-document core app. But there are even more options for partners. Partner will be able to add additional value to our localizations. That means not only in a core app, you can extend even our current localizations, future localizations. Maybe some new features, maybe something related with some industry specifics. There is no limitations. You can extend as you want. But there is also an opportunity for third-party access points. You can see our third-party access point providers, not our, in general, third-party access point providers, will be able to extend these features of these apps as well. Now I'm talking about third-party access points app. Because different access points providers have different set of features. and we don't plan to deliver their feature inside the BD Central. BD Central will handle what is required by default, what is required to deliver invoicing and other documents, to receive, to exchange messages, and so. But these access points have their own businesses and their own features, so they can extend our integration app with additional features if they like it. That means you can use much more feature inside the BD Central if you decide to communicate directly with access point provider. But the most important thing is that all of them will use the same base model, and it will not be complicated to be used and supported in multiple environments. Now, my colleague Weil will continue with deep dive in architecture, and after that, he will show all these slide demos. Weil?
So now, if you are building your own e-document application, you'll start by subscribing to the posting routine. You will obviously need to implement some background jobs to run all your code in a background job. And you might want to also implement a mapping field logic in case when you are exporting and importing documents, you want to map the field to be more to follow the standard by that endpoint you are integrating with. And then you want to build some logic that will export and import a document for each format you're using. And then you want to build an integration with that endpoint you are trying to send and import documents from. You're not done yet. You still need to build error handling, logging, retention policy, and finally, maybe a dashboard so your customer can follow the progress of sending and receiving e-documents. So what we did is that we did the heavy lifting. We packaged all of that in e-document core application. And that's a framework to speed up your productivity when you are trying to build your own e-document application. All you need to do, basically, we created interface for creating and importing documents and for integrating with an endpoint to send and receive documents. All you need to do from your side is to build an implementation in your localization application, and that would basically implement the create and the exporting and importing of documents for each format you're supporting. You'll also need to implement an interface to integrate with that endpoint to send and receive documents. You can go the extra mile to build a setup wizard to automate the first step your customer have to do, where basically you collect all the information to which formats they're using, which endpoint they are integrating to, collecting all the, username, certificates, and stuff like that. Now, we actually built a demo localization app to basically demo how the e-document core would look like from a customer point of view, and we will show you that demo. And now we will show you a demo of our test localization apps that we built on top of e-document core. So let's start with setup. The first part that you're going to do to set this up is to go to e-document service. And we're going to create a new one. So let's call it Kronos service. And we'll give it a description. This to send and receive document from test service. And yeah, we'll choose a document format. So we created a PIPL test format, and also we created a Kronos integration, a test integration. You will see there are a lot of fields and properties that you can play with. For example, we are supporting batch processing natively, so you can check that later. We also have import parameters when you're importing a document, and then we have mapping when you're exporting and importing. So just for the sake of demo, we will try to basically create everything that we export and transform it to be uppercase, utilizing the transformation rule. The last thing is that I will also create the setup for service integration. Here I can add the endpoint and sending endpoint and receiving endpoint. So now I'll get my sending endpoint link. So we created just like a test service that we can use for this demo. And yeah, now it's set up and ready. So the next part is that I will need to go to workflow. I will create like a new workflow. Then I'll show you how you can do it manually. We also have templates, but for the sake of this demo, we'll do it manually. So simple, let's call it simple flow. Send e-document and make sure to choose the category as e-document. And the event that we created is that when e-document is created, and I will choose a response as when an e-document created, we want to send this e-document using setup. And then right here, I'll choose the setup, which is Kronos service that we just created. You can actually send to multiple servers by clicking add more responses. But for the sake of the simple demo, let's just send to one service. And finally, I'll enable this one. Now, we have one last step in the setup, which is basically to go to document sending profile. And I created a default one earlier on. So the only thing I'll choose is that as electronic document, we will choose extended e-document service flow. And then I will choose the simple flows that we just created. Great. Now we are ready to send an example e-invoice, and my colleague Manos will show you how you can do that.
All right, thanks, Wael. Let's see how the electronic document solution works in the sales process. To illustrate this, I will create and post a sales invoice for a customer that has electronic documents enabled in their document sending profile. So let's just sell one bicycle, post this invoice. And once posted, we can actually go directly to the e-document from the posted sales invoice page through the related e-document action. This will open up the e-document where we will be able to see details about the sales invoice we just posted, such as posting date, the entity involved, and other important information, as well as a link to the sales invoice itself. The next thing you would probably want to look at is the status of this electronic document and where it is in the processing pipeline. As we can see here, the electronic document status is set to processed. This gives you a real-time view at where the document is in the pipeline. And if you want a more in-depth view on a service level, you can go to the e-document service status, which will give you the status of the document for each service. Here we can see that we use the Kronos service to send to, and we can see that the status is set to send. We can even go further in detail in the logs, which will provide a chronological overview of the events that this document has been through. So the first thing we will see is that the document was exported. The next thing that happened was that it was sent. Looking at the exported entry, we have the option to actually open the mapping, where we can see that we uppercased all the fields that was used in this export. It's also possible to export the file and review it manually. Yes, so if you're interested in the communication that happens between you and the service that you're sending to, you can even go to communication logs, where we will provide information about the request and response message that was with that service. And of course, this document was processed successfully, but we all know that sometimes services might go down from time to time due to availability or other problems that might arise. This, of course, we also handle. So let's see an example where the service will throw an error and how we deal with that. So we'll just create a new sales invoice for the same customer. Sell another bike. Let's post it and go to the posted sales invoice, where now we should see that the e-document has a sending error. We can even see that the document status is error, as well as we provide the error message for the user such that they can read and understand what might be the problem. Of course, they can also go to the communication logs to try and figure out if there is some problem with the response or the request. In order to come around this, we give you the option to use manual actions. As you can see here, we can actually send the document, we can recreate the document, we can cancel or get approval. These are different types of manual actions that might help you get out of a situation like this one. All right, so let's send to this service that was no longer working, that now should be back online. So we just pick the Kronos service again, and now you can actually see that the electronic document status was updated to be processed, as well as the status on the specific service was changed to send, meaning we actually succeeded in sending and the manual actions did what it's supposed to do. Yes, and now that we showed you how sending documents work, my colleague will guide you through how importing documents work with our solution.
Yes, thank you, Magnus, and hello to everyone. Now we're switching to the receiving side. And before we get to the process, let me just briefly show you the setup. We have a document service with a receiving endpoint, which is basically a service that is sending PayPal invoices. Receiving e-documents is done by a batch job, but for the purpose of this demonstration, we are not running the job queue automatically. We're gonna run it manually. So let me just run the job queue. We got a success, and we got our electronic document in the system. As you can see, this is a sunshine scenario. We already we didn't get any error, so we already created a purchase invoice out of the document, and we can see that the item number 10,000 in Kronos that was sent to our site is mapped to item number 1001. And this is because we have an item reference for this item. We're gonna post the document. And our e-document is also updated, so we are now pointing to the posted purchase invoice. What will happen if we get an error during import? Let's just simulate the error using the same document, but removing item reference. I go to item and I remove this reference. Then I'm gonna run job queue once again manually. And we got a message that there is an error. By the way, this is only if GUI is allowed. Now we see the error that we cannot find any item based on what we received. How we can bypass this error? We can go to map text to account, for example, and then we can specify that item with this text should go to this account instead of being mapped to another item. Then we can reprocess it manually. So the invoice is created, and now we have GL account line. There is also a possibility to create journal lines instead of document. And in order to do so, I'm gonna remove this mapping and run job queue once again. I get the error, but what can I do from here? I can map everything that is coming from this customer to be used on this account. And then I can create journal. So no error here. We get a warning that this document already exists. We can jump to the journal. It's actually already some lines in here. And we can post this journal. I might get an error because of purchase document already exists. And now we can post this journal. I only need to update the document number because it already exists in our system. Journal was successfully posted, and if I go back, I can see that e-document now points to GL entry. So that was the overview of the import part, and now my colleague Alexander will continue with details about features and roadmap.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. And I will just finish this session, but before finishing, I want to explain a few more important things about available features, what is covered with this release, and what you can expect in the future. Okay, first, to be clear what we have covered in this release. We have, from sales perspective, about sales invoices, we can create electronic invoice from sales invoice and from sales order. From purchase side, you can import your electronic documents to purchase invoice and purchase order, but only if you want to create new purchase order, not to update existing one. And even if this is not on the list, as you could see from Vladimir demos, you can import to journal as well. Then about credit memos, both credit memos from sales and purchase side, they are covered with this release. And important, not about documents, this is configurable. You can configure on a really good level, and you can extend if you need for your local markets. All messages depends on a local features because they cannot be introduced in a global feature. Only basic things are here. Everything else will be on a local level. About roadmap, this is continuing improvements. We don't want to finish in one release electronic document because this is complex story, and we will continue in next minimum 2 releases to deliver new features there. What is first? I mentioned in the beginning, not in the beginning, in one moment, that we are preparing this third-party access points app. It will be ready until the end of this year as a new app on the top of e-documents core. And then we will continue with the first, let's say, the biggest feature improvement, updating existing purchase order. That means in a case you already have created purchase order, and now you will get purchase invoice for just part of this purchase order, and to map it. This is something what we are planning to deliver as a first feature improvement. Then about localizations, now we cannot say exactly which localization will come first. As you could see, Denmark must work from January, and in Belgium we need to have received the documents in January. So probably we can say that Denmark and Belgium will come first, but all other countries depends on enforcement dates on local markets. That means when we see that this is mandatory in one country, we will deliver all localizations on a time. Now I'm talking about Microsoft-based localizations. And if you are asking, or if you ask yourself about access points, if Microsoft will provide access point or not, how it works. And you could see that we are providing third-party access points communication as well. There is no universal and unique answer. It depends again from country to country. This is not in a global app. This is something what will come in localizations. And if authorities in one country provide us uncertified access point to communicate with their service, we will deliver this. But if authorities require certified service, for example, in Denmark, it is required to access point be certified service. And this is not something what Microsoft can provide, so we will communicate through third access points providers. You can choose which access point provider you want to use. This is on our customers, our partners, but we will provide everything to communicate and to be integrated with them. Okay, that's everything for today. I want to say thank you in my name and the name of my colleagues. And before I close this session, I just want to invite you to join all sessions in BC Launch event, but especially these two because they are connected or interconnected with this topic. First is what is new related with the new Danish Bookkeeping Act, because we will talk about electronic invoicing in Denmark. So it will be directly connected with this session. And what is new in legislation localization, because it will be about all features created in this area. And if you need more information about Busy Central, about our services, so you can find all important links on this page. If you cannot remember all of them, try to not to forget this one in the middle, aka MSBCO. This is a place where you can find all these links on our one common place. Once more, thank you, and I hope this feature will be good for you.